For centuries, she's existed in this fascinating space between history and myth, paganism and Christianity. Is she a saint, a goddess, or somehow both? Just who was the real Brigid? You might have heard that back in 2023, Ireland got a brand new national holiday in her honor, which is great. I mean, who doesn't love a day off? But it got a lot of people wondering, who was she, really? Because her story is so much more complex, layered, and frankly, way cooler than you might think. So let's peel back those layers together.
All right, so let's start with the official version, the story of the Christian saint. We're talking way back, around 451 AD in Leinster. And right from the get-go, her life is full of these really sharp contrasts. Get this, her dad was a noble chieftain, but her mom, she was an enslaved woman in his court.
Okay, but how do we even know all this? Well, that's where it gets really interesting. See, our main source is something called a hagiography, which is basically a saint's biography. And it was written by a monk named Cogitosus, almost 200 years after she died. So you can imagine, her story is this amazing mix of fact and fiction, a blend of real history with some seriously wild folklore and miracle tales.
And speaking of miracles, oh boy, the story of how she founded her monastery in Kildare is an absolute classic. The legend of how she claimed that land really shows you the kind of power people believed she had. So, the story goes that Brigid went to the King of Leinster to ask for some land, and he, being kind of dismissive, just laughed her off. He mockingly told her, "Sure, you can have as much land as your little cloak can cover." He probably thought that was a pretty clever way to say no. Yeah, he had no idea who he was dealing with.
So what does Brigid do? She just tells her friends to each grab a corner of the cloak. And then, poof! The cloak just starts to stretch and stretch and stretch, covering acres and acres of prime land. I mean, can you just imagine the look on the king's face? He was totally floored. And, well, a deal's a deal. He gave her the land, and that's where she built her legendary monastery.
And that's just the beginning. The miracles attributed to her are incredible, and they almost always have to do with helping people, with this amazing generosity, like turning her bathwater into beer for a thirsty leper colony. I mean, come on! She gave away her dad's priceless sword to a beggar without even thinking twice. Her cows could supposedly give milk 3 times in one day to make sure guests were taken care of, and my personal favorite, she casually hung her wet cloak on a sunbeam to dry. Just on a sunbeam. How cool is that?
Okay, but here's where the story takes a major plot twist. Because the deeper you dig into Saint Brigid, the Christian saint, you start to see the outline of someone much, much older. And this, right here, is the real heart of the mystery. When you put the ancient Celtic goddess Brigid side by side with Saint Brigid, the similarities are just undeniable. I mean, look at this. Their feast day is the same, February 1st, which was also the pagan fire festival of Imbolc. They both share symbols of fire and water. And get this, they are both protectors of poets, blacksmiths, and healers. That is just way too specific to be a coincidence, right? And it wasn't. This was a really smart strategy by the early church. Absorb local gods and traditions to make the new faith feel more familiar and less, foreign. It just smoothed the path for conversion. And if you want one symbol that perfectly ties these two worlds, the pagan and the Christian, together, look no further than the eternal flame that was kept burning in her monastery in Kildare.
We have this incredible description from a writer in the 12th century who talks about this mysterious tradition. The flame was tended by 19 nuns, and they kept it in this special enclosure that men were absolutely forbidden to enter. So for 19 nights, each nun would take a turn watching the fire, but on the 20th night, they would just leave the fuel and say, "Brigid, keep your own fire." And the belief was that the saint herself would magically keep it burning all night long.
The history of this flame is really a story about resilience. It started as a pagan thing for the goddess, then it was adopted by the Christian nuns. But then it was actually put out, twice, by church authorities who were, let's just say, a little nervous about its pagan roots. But you know what? You just can't keep a powerful symbol like that down for long.
And sure enough, in 1993, the Brigidian sisters brought it back. They relit the sacred flame in Kildare, and it is still burning there today. It's this incredible living link to both the saint and the goddess, a symbol that has literally endured for millennia.
So, besides the flame, what's the other big thing we associate with Brigid? Well, it's something you'll find in homes all across Ireland. I'm talking, of course, about her iconic cross.
So here's the origin story. Legend says Brigid was with a dying pagan chieftain, and to explain the Christian faith to him, she just grabbed some rushes from the floor and started weaving them into the shape of a cross.
It was such a simple, beautiful gesture that the chieftain was completely moved by it, and he asked to be baptized right then and there.
And from that one small act, a huge tradition was born. To this day, on the eve of her feast day, families gather to weave these crosses. They hang them over the doors of their homes, in their barns, everywhere. The idea is that they bring protection and blessings for the year ahead.
Now, most of us probably picture the famous four-armed cross. I mean, it was literally the logo for Irish TV for a long time. But what's really cool is that there are tons of different regional styles. You'll see three-armed versions, diamond-shaped ones, all sorts of intricate designs. It really shows you just how deep this tradition runs all across Ireland.
And the process of making one is actually really beautiful. It's this quiet, almost meditative act. You just gather the rushes and start weaving. It's a simple, repetitive motion that really connects you to the legend of Brigid and to the whole season of renewal she represents.
So, when you pull it all together, who is she the patron saint of? Well, pretty much everyone. Poets and healers, that's a direct link to the goddess. Dairy workers, of course, because of those miracle cows. And she's also the patron of newborns and fugitives, which just perfectly captures her role as a protector of the vulnerable.
Her legacy today is this amazing blend of strength and compassion. She is a figure of earth and fire, of justice and peace, of faith and pure creativity. She's just this perfect, uniquely Irish fusion of ancient folklore and Christian belief.
So, as Ireland celebrates its newest national hero, her story really makes you think, doesn't it? What can we take away from a figure who so perfectly bridges all these different worlds? Pagan and Christian, myth and history, the divine and the everyday. What does that incredible legacy of resilience, creativity, and compassion mean for us, right here, right now? It's definitely something to ponder.